Hello again, art students. Today we're going to do an op art lesson. Now this lesson I am combining with both art history class and 7th through 12th grade art class. Now if you've been in art class with me for several years, we may have done this as a project. We may have also done this as just a filler if you were done early. It's a quick, easy project, but today I thought we'd do a little bit more with it. And if you have done some of these with me before, stay tuned. Don't stop watching now, because I have a little bit more advanced and some that we have never done before. To get started, these are the first ones that I want to start off with, and let me tell you what supplies you're going to need. So just grab a piece of paper, just regular sheet of printer paper, and then I want you to cut it into 4. So 4 sheets out of 1 paper. It's easier to work these with small sections to get started, and then if you want to try to do a much larger one, a larger scale, then you can do that as well. But to get started, let's just start with these little mini ones. All right. So here I have 4 different ones that we're going to work on. This would be kind of almost our spider web or our pencil design. This one would be kind of what I would consider like a worm design. And this one would be, I think it kind of looks like you've spilled water on the table. Have you ever spilled water on your table or your tablecloth, and it almost looks like it magnifies, those water droplets, looks like it magnifies underneath, and that's a pretty fun one. And then this one is really cool, and I think this kind of almost looks like maybe garlic cloves or even some flowers. But they're pretty fun to do, and they get a little bit addicting after a while. So let's get started. Your supplies, like I said, paper. Grab a ruler, that will help you with some of these. Some colored pencils would be great. Of course, your regular pencil, even a Sharpie or just a regular Crayola marker will work. And then also some fine point markers. If you have a fine point Sharpie marker, you can use that. But please be aware, the longer you hold a Sharpie marker down, the more it will bleed out onto your paper. I use these micron markers because they don't bleed like that. You could also just use a regular ink pen. If you have gel pens, those would also work really well, and they would probably be really cool if you even had some of the glitter ones or metallic ones. Those would make really awesome op art. So before we completely get started, and we are going to start with the one I think is the most simple, which would be this watermark one, or what I would be calling it a water spill. But before we do that, let me tell you just a real brief history on op art. So basically, op art is an art movement. It's said to have originated with a man named Victor Vasarely. He's credited with being the grandfather and the leader of the op art movement. It uses geometric shapes and graphics that create the illusion of spatial depth. So like I said, when you look at this, you might think that, like me, it gives you that illusion that there's water spilled on this checkerboard pattern. When you look at this one, you might think that it has that illusion that it is like tubular, or like I said, it almost gives the effect of a worm. And this one as well kind of almost gives you that effect of a cone or a pencil. And shading also comes into play when doing certain op arts. That helps give that illusion of the form that we're going for. So I want to write down for you guys the names of these artists that I think you should look up. Go ahead and look them up. Use a black so you can see it better. But this, his name is Victor Vasarely. I spelled that wrong. I apologize. That is an A. Okay, look him up. Now, he really began doing this around the late 1930s. One of his most famous ones, or believed to be the first one that he did that really brought op art to life, was called Zebra. Look this up. This is from 1937 when he did this. Another really good one is called Veganor. This one is from 1969. Okay, another artist that is really known for the op art as well, her name is Bridget Riley, and Bridget is a British painter, where Victor is a Hungarian artist, Hungarian and English artist. Anyway, so look up also Bridget Riley. Look up two of her really most famous op arts are from 1963. It's called Fall, and another one called Cataract, which is from 1967. When you look up this one, this really gives that illusion. This one will mess with your eyes. It's a pretty wild piece of art. But go ahead and look up some more op art and look up more of the ones that they have done. It's pretty fascinating, and like I said, some of them will really mess with your eyes. They really do give you the illusion that they are moving. I'm going to switch to another light piece of paper here so we can get started, just so you can see my work. So I want you to take one of your pieces of paper. This is the one we're going to start on, and I want you to make a grid. So take your ruler and just mark out an entire grid. About a 1-inch grid will work just fine both ways. You will get this. This is what we want you to have. Okay, with this I'm just using my regular Sharpie marker, the medium tip one. You can also use a Crayola marker with this one because you're going to be coloring this one in. Okay, I'm going to turn it this way so you guys can see as I'm working. You can also see my example. Alright, so with this one you just want to take and make some kind of wiggly line throughout your entire paper. It can go off the edge if you want. Keep coming around however you want. You can end up making two of these if you want. It doesn't have to be one single line. You can make a second wiggly line however you want. Once again, most of these op arts were done at the beginning. They mostly started out in black and white. It wasn't until later on that they started using really bright, vivid colors. So I'm going to use black and white for this sample, and I'm going to explain how to do this. This is best to work one row at a time. I like to work from top to bottom. It's just easiest for me. However you want to do it will work for you, and that's good. So the first one I'm going to do is my first section, even along with that wiggly line I've made. This I'm going to fill completely in with my black color. And you just want to fill that whole section in. Like I said, you can use a permanent marker on this. You can just use a Crayola marker, however you want to do it. You could even do this with crayons. Okay, once you've got that first section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going every other section. So this section is going to stay black, this section is going to stay white, and this section is now going to be black again. And notice I don't have any wiggly lines in here. This is just a complete solid square. So this complete solid square will be black. It is a little tedious, and once again, this is why I say to use that smaller piece of paper, because if you're using one whole sheet of paper, you are going to be a long time coloring, but those will look very nice as well. All right, here we go with the next one. Now, as you can see, my wiggle line right here, do you see that little space in there? Okay, this whole space right here will be white because I'm going alternating colors of black, white, black, white. Now this section of my line or my square will be solid black. We are making that checkerboard pattern, but we have to be careful because we don't want those two solid shapes or solid sections together. So I don't want to put another solid black here. So this is where you might get a little confused. Okay, remember we're going black, white, black. There's that little tiny section of black or section of white, black. This section will be white. Now I'm going to keep coming down. I'm not going to treat this as an entire section here. I'm still going vertically up and down, okay? I'm going from top to bottom. So don't worry about this whole square. Right here is black. This will be white. This will be black. So I'm going to fill this in. I'm going to come back to the rest of that square in just a minute. This is where it can get confusing, and this is where I've had students start to make mistakes and fill in the wrong square. All right. And I just have this teeny little extra section down at the bottom that my grid didn't complete, and that's okay. I'm just going to leave it, so that's going to be white. All right, now coming back to this square again, let's go back to the very top, just so we don't get confused. Black, white, and kind of follow this inside your inside line here. So black, white, and notice I even have a little slither right here, so this is one whole section, white. This section will be black. So you want to fill that in. Now notice I have a very tiny section there. I don't want to fill that in. That's not included in this section. All right. Now you can see how we've got that alternating pattern. Okay? All right. Do you see this little tiny slither over here too? Also, don't worry about that because that's going to be in our next grid. So I want to at least do 2 grids before we move on to the next, so you guys really get an idea of how we're working with this. Okay? So once again, now we're going to do the opposite. So we started with black on this side. On this column, we're going to start with white because we want them to be opposites to each other. So this section will be white, and we're going to start white, black. So this section will fill in with black. Are you still with me? It's not getting too confusing yet, is it? All right. So we have white and we have black. Moving on, this is black. Remember, try and keep to the side where your line is first, because sometimes you'll need to go back and do it another time. One column can almost seem like 2. So we've got black, white. I'm staying close to this line. I'm sorry, white, black, white. This will be black. Follow this whole section. I have a pretty big section here, and I'm going to fill this in completely black. And like I said, you can use any color. It does not have to be black and white. I just chose black and white on this one. I chose white with purple on my sample. Once you get the hang of this, if you want, you could even add a second color. So if I wanted to do that purple and add green in the secondary, in the white squares, instead of keeping them white, you could do that as well. Complementary colors would be really well because they would stand out next to each other, but you could also do any colors that you'd like. All right, now that we've got that one done, starting at the top again, white, black, white, black, white. This section's going to remain white. This one's going to stay black. Okay, let's get this one filled in black. Now you see that little slither over there? See, now we don't have to worry about that, because that's going to stay white. Because if you'll notice, now we're getting alternating colors side to side as well. All right, we're getting close to having 2 of these sections done. All right, coming back up to the top. Sometimes it just helps if you go all the way back to the top so you know you're not missing anything. White, black, white, black, white, black, white. So this whole section here. Uh-oh. And you know what? This is where it gets confusing, and I've already messed up right here, and I've caught myself. And this is tricky, especially when you have something that's coming in at a corner. So this would probably be my next tip to you. And I didn't think about it ahead of time, and I should have told you. When you are making your wiggly line, try not to make any of those wiggles cross over right directly at a intersection. If you do, that's when you're going to have this little mistake. But actually, I think I can correct this because I'm pretty close to the bottom here, and it's just going to look like my wiggle line from here goes over just slightly more. But once again, if we're following this line right here, white, black, white, black, white, black, this should remain white. This section here, this big section, this tiny section is actually going to be black. Do you see that? This should be white. Touching this black one should be white. And if we go on this line, see, I've only made this little mistakes down here, so I'm not going to worry about it. If we go close to this line, we'll correct this. White, black. And I know this is white, and this is crossing very close to that corner. We only want our corners touching. See, our black corners are touching. So this would be black and this would be white. So if you're looking, I know this is touching right there at the corner. This is actually going to be black. So sometimes that helps just to remember only the corners can be touching, no flat sides. So once again, our black corners are touching here, they're touching here. They're only touching at corners. Okay, this little part is going to remain white because we have that black, white, black. Here's our white again. Here's our black. Okay, this one is remaining white, which I started to mess up on that. And this little teeny section right here is going to be black. So see, once again, Even the teachers make mistakes. It's okay. I'm going to do one more over here just to make sure you guys have the idea, and then we'll move on to our next one. So on this one, we're going to start with black. Fill this whole side in. Remember, only corners can be touching. It's okay that this is touching right here. It's a little bit bigger than a corner, but that's all right. Sometimes I know I've had students that have liked to go black, white, black, put a dot, white, black. I actually am going to discourage you from doing that, and I can show you why, because right here this would not be black. You may think it is, but you actually need to go past each square. So this is black, white, this is black. This section being white, but this section would not be black. It's actually this really tiny section here, because you're going from all of these horizontal lines is what you're trying to follow. Black, white, black, white, black, white, black. And this is where a lot of students have made those mistakes by trying to put a dot so they know which section to be filling in. And sometimes that, by doing that, they get a little just ahead of themselves, and it ends up being in the wrong spot. So it really is best just to do one section at a time. White, black, this whole big section would be white, and once again, following close to this line, crossing over, this little section here would be black. Okay, so you guys kind of get the idea of what's going on now. I guess I'll go ahead and finish. I was thinking I would stop, but maybe we'll just go ahead and finish, give you a little extra more time. All right. And I probably should have gone back on this side, because I can see this one is missing now. If I go black, white, this would be black. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and stop with this so we can move on to other sections. Actually, this is a black section. See, I think I've even messed myself up. I was thinking that would not be black, but it is. You just have to go very slowly, making sure only the corners of your colors are touching. All right. So here we have our watermark there. Let's go ahead and move on to our next one. All right. Put those off to the side. All right, for our next one, let's go ahead and work on this. So once again, you're going to need a marker. You can use your regular Sharpie marker. You can use that fine tip marker at this point. It doesn't matter either. And you need to make a grid. Or not really a grid, but on this one more of a spider, almost like a spider web. So we're going to go corner to corner. Corner to corner again. If you don't get this exact, it's okay. It's not going to matter too much. In the center. Once again, if these are not exactly straight, don't worry about it too much. You're still going to get the same effect. And horizontal. All right. From here, this is where we're going to use, we are going to use colored pencils on this one. But I want you to take your marker, and this is where we are basically making that spider web. So spider web, you're going to make, you know, big rainbows. Try to be pretty pronounced with these rainbows. Don't make them too straight across. The more pronounced you make them, the better effect you're going to have with that illusion. All the way around. And you will do the same thing lower. Same thing, try to keep them fairly pronounced, nice and arched. All the way around. Try not to get them too close together. You want to have enough room to really give that colored shading effect. Okay, and then you can do one more. I can get one more all the way down to the end there. And all the way around. All right. Now that we have that, go ahead and grab your colored pencils. This is where we're going to do a little bit of shading, and we've talked about shading before, you know how to do it. When you're using colored pencils, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Just one color, keeping it pretty dark on the inside of your line, getting lighter towards the center, very light in the center. You can even leave a little bit of white space left over. Do the same on the other side. Okay. Another way you can do it is and I like to alternate colors. So I like to use two colors as I did on this one. On this one I did green, orange, green, orange, green, and then I did a different color pattern on the other ones. So once again, keeping it pressing heavy in the center, getting lighter in the center, dark on the edges, always dark on the edges, and lighter in the center. Like I said, you can even leave a little bit of white there to give it that illusion that your light is coming directly on top of it and it's reflecting there, and it's the darkest, the shadowing on the edges. Another way you can do colored pencils is to take two different colors of blue or purple or whatever, and you can use another darker color on top to also give some extra shading, if you want to do it that way as well. And then, like I said, I would just alternate with colors. So I'm going to go in now, use a green, and just alternate. You can even take a white colored pencil to go in the center and just help blend that pencil together. If you wanted, you could even just use some drawing pencils and just do the one color shading that way as well. You know, play around with it and see how you like. Alright, I'm not going to fill this all the way in because I've got my sample here and I've shown you the basic effect of what you're going to get there, and we're going to move on to our next one. This way we have time to work on all of these. Alright, so grab another piece of paper. Alright, this one is kind of our little bit of a worm effect, and this one is a little bit more basic, a little bit flatter. Here is one that I have not finished filling in, but it's got a little bit more wiggle to it. I kind of like the little bit more wiggle. You can do it either way. This one, you can use a regular marker or you can use that fine tip marker. Either way is fine with me, however you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and use a fine tip marker, and I want you to start off with giving me about about 6 to 7 lines, vertical lines on your paper. And those lines can be wiggly. You can keep a couple of them straighter. You can make real wiggles, however you want to do. All right, there we've got our lines. So next I want you to make a horizontal line, and also I would like that to be a little wiggly, not necessarily too bad, but just give me kind of a wavy line here. Okay, so now we have one horizontal wavy line and 6 lines vertically that are wiggly. All right. I like to choose the one in the center to start with first. And this center one, okay, so here I just realized I did something wrong and I apologize. I'm going to grab, you know what, I'm just going to do the back side of this paper. I'm actually going to trace over where I can see my lines, because what I want to tell you guys, and I realized that I do not want to see my vertical, I'm sorry, not my vertical, I do not want to see my horizontal wavy line, this one right here. So with that line, take a pencil, because we want to actually erase that line when we're done. Okay, now let's get back. So starting at this center point, we're going to take and we're going to make that same rainbow. We want to go from one line to the next line. Every single time we want to start from one line and go to the next line. Some of them can be closer together and even touch, and some of them don't have to be, as long as you are touching both your vertical lines on both sides. All the way up to the top. It doesn't matter if they are spaced out evenly or if they are not. Then I want you to turn it upside down and do the same thing on the opposite side, making those same curved shapes. Make sure they go from one side to the next. Make sure they are completely touching both sides of those vertical lines, all the way up to the top. Okay, do one more small one right there. Now, skip over one. You don't have to, I just think it's easier visually to see what you're doing if you skip over one.